the gates of Camino.
Get this and get it straight. Crime is a sucker's road, and those who travel it wind up in the gutter, the prison, or the grave. This time, inside of 2 hours, a lavish mansion seethed with suspicion, a sealed cabin filled with gas, and an artist's retreat had a corpse on the floor. All because one man was too good-looking to be true to anyone.
From the pen of Raymond Chandler, outstanding author of mystery, comes his most famous character and crime's most deadly enemy, as we present The Adventures of Philip Marlowe. Now, with Gerald Moore, starred as Philip Marlowe, we bring you tonight's exciting story, The Lady Killer.
The longer I sat in my office with my feet up on the desk and thought about it, the more convinced I became. Paul Niles was unquestionably the handsomest man I'd ever seen. He had a face that belonged on a Greek god, only his features were better, more finely chiseled. They looked as though they'd been molded out of alabaster from a blueprint by some inspired genius. And the classic side view he presented made the great profile show up like a bowl full of shredded wheat. In fact, the guy was much too good to be true in more ways than one.
Thought I'd get that out of there. You know.
All right.
How we doing? How you doing, Joe?
How you doing, man? I saw all of your views on Marlowe.
That
Oh,
one.
man.
Wait, yeah. How you doing, Vito?
I'm all right. I tried to give Marlowe a second viewing because I saw it
Right.
about, I don't know, maybe a month or so ago when they first put it on Prime. We were excited when it first came out, man. We all talked about this thing a year ago when they first announced, oh, they're trying to bring Marlowe back or whatever.
Yeah.
And fuck, yeah, it was tough.
Oof.
It was, I don't even know.
Okay, but I have a couple questions though before we get into it.
Okay.
Wait, did
Okay.
you say you had a drinking game to Marlowe?
No, I was going to say,
Suggest
you
one.
could have a drinking game for how many times people say, Mr. Marlowe.
Mr. Marlowe. So I
They
guess
said it like 500 times in that movie.
Or every
This
time
was
they
the-
ask about Nico, you're like, "What the fuck?" You almost forget who he is every time they keep asking.
Oh, God.
okay,
Oh,
like,
Joe,
the
go ahead.
point
Sorry,
of it.
what
the
was
question I
What was
have. So, and this was something that was really bugging me too the whole time I was watching it. It felt like everybody that was involved with this thought it was a really great job. They thought they did a great
Definitely.
job. That's what it felt. It didn't feel like anybody phoned it in.
They felt like they were all doing like Raymond Chandler proud. They all, yeah, you could
all
tell
of
they thought they were swinging for the fences.
Oh, every time Diane Kruger said Mr. Marlowe, you
Oh
could.
my god! Oh my god!
Oh, yeah. She was going for it. She was going for it.
Well,
I
and
was
she's-
waiting.
But also, you know what I was wondering whenever when I first put it on, I was like, how are they going to address the whole Irish? Like, are they going to bring up the Irish thing? You know, I mean, this is basically a Los Angeles-based character. He's American
Yeah,
in the
I'm
book.
glad we're bringing this up
And-
now because it needs to be talked about.
And Liam Neeson is the furthest thing. And so a couple times in the movie, he brings up like, I'm aware of Ireland or whatever. He tries to do a couple things that it's like a Van Damme movie.
It's kind of the problem.
Yeah.
Armando, did you start watching the Monsieur Spade?
No, I didn't get a chance to start watching that one. I did find it though. I'm going to check it out.
This is so. First off, I'll say, which I was very surprised. Clive Owen does a pretty good job. He does a good Sam Spade, but he has the same problem that Liam Neeson has. They can't help but let their accent slip, and it takes you completely out of it. Like Humphrey Bogart had a very specific. I mean, it was kind of, you couldn't really say it was Brooklyn or whatever, but it was an accent you could tell he was from here. Whereas Liam Neeson and Clive Owen and probably a lot of these other British actors that are out here taking our American boys' jobs. but I think that's the problem, that they sound like these very generic sounding human beings.
Yeah.
They don't even sound like real, like they can't even do the tough guy thing. Well, I'm sorry, no, Clive Owen can. That's why he can pull it off.
Yeah.
He can reliably do it. And he's also playing a person that's his age. Unlike Liam
I was just
Neeson,
gonna
who
say about
apparently-
the age. Yeah, I was just gonna say about the age. I mean,
I know.
I guess we're just gonna. I guess the movie asks of us to just look past that. I think Liam Neeson 70 and Philip Marlowe. I mean, just you can Wikipedia it. He was written as 38, a 38-year-old from Santa Rosa, born in Santa Rosa. Like, come on, really, 70-year-old Irish Liam Neeson, like.
The
You
Irish
can hear it
Liam
in his
Neeson.
voice. You can just hear it in the cadence, like in the way that the lines are executed. Even Diane Kruger, you could hear her German accent in it too, and she's supposed to be
it
Jessica
slipped a
Lange's
few
daughter.
times. Yeah,
You're like,
that
wait,
definitely
you're just.
slipped.
Did you guys? Is there anything you liked about it? Like, because I will say, I could see how I would have gotten fooled into watching this even without your prompting, because I'm like,
Right.
oh, this looks kind of cool. It's got that orange tint, that sepia toned, like kind of LA
about
detective.
like. So I want to talk a little bit about all the Philip Marlowe movies or whatever, but about this one specifically, what I wanted to at least like about it, because Neil Jordan directed. Neil Jordan is a good director, so you're expecting something, at least.
Yeah.
I mean, even if the script's not that good, you're expecting at least a fun watch.
He
I was
did
like, it's
Crying
what
Game,
you
right?
sent us. Yeah. Oh, excuse me.
He did Crying Game, right?
Yeah.
Crying Game. Yeah, he did the Crying Game. He did that
And
one.
lots of other stuff. Yeah.
That one neo noir with Nick Nolte that was pretty good, where he's the heroin addict.
Oh, The Good Thief.
Yeah,
that was really
The Good Thief. Yeah, he's done a few really good movies. So I'm expecting him to do Marlowe at least all right. And all I wanted was, and you sent us the email about it, Armando, or the text message about the way LA looked. And I was so disappointed on the job they did on like old Hollywood. I wanted like, that's all I cared about was old Hollywood in it, and it did not have a good look.
Give me a Sunset and Vine intersection. Give me an old like an old movie premiere, maybe. Like, I feel like wasn't there a movie premiere in there? There was like a premiere party.
I mean, they were like the one. Nico was working on movie sets, but I mean.
Yeah,
LA Confidential did that so perfectly. Old Hollywood.
Yeah, I was going to say. And, initially, I was just about to say too. I'm like, well, probably they're like this indie production trying to get their shit together. I'm like, they have Liam Neeson and Jessica Lange,
the biggest cock in Hollywood.
They had probably a ton of. They could do whatever they wanted.
Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about. that rumor about the list.
Yeah, that's funny. Liam swinging.
Whoa, poor old Liam.
So,
go ahead.
So this is probably the worst Marlowe ever, I think, in the movie canon of it all, like TV and movies. So, I mean, if you go backwards, I even was trying to find, I was watching the the Powers Booth TV show that was on HBO back in the early 80s. I was watching that earlier.
Cut. God, I forgot about that too.
Remember that one? Yeah.
Yep.
You were able to find it too?
It's on YouTube. And so I started watching all the old Philip Marlowe stuff. So like if you look back, the very first Philip Marlowe, like the real Philip Marlowe movies was the one that they did. It was with Dick Powell. No, it was actually Murder
Dick
My
Powell,
Sweet.
Murder My Sweet.
Dick
That's
Powell.
right.
Dick Powell is the director of The Conqueror with John Wayne. And he also stars. And he stars in this. Yeah. He was an actor first.
I thought Howard Hughes directed. No, you're right. He produced it. Oh shit!
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
So Dick Powell directed that, but he was the star of Murder My Sweet. Yeah. He was a pretty good Philip Marlowe.
He was good though.
Like that.
He was.
So Murder My Sweet's a pretty decent movie. Yeah, I like Dick Powell too. But then The Big Sleep came the year after that with Humphrey Bogart, and that was like what 44 to 45 or
46
like that.
I got 46.
And The Big Sleep is really the first big Philip Marlowe. People think Humphrey Bogart,
this is what I was going to say this too, kind of in reference to and the reason I think that people keep trying to redo it, in a lot of ways they do Westerns, there's a certain vibe that comes with an old PI movie that when you do it right, it doesn't matter what the story is. You'll just stick with it. It's going to be a fun, whatever, 90 minutes. And that's what like people liked about Westerns back in the day too, but they inevitably, start being characters of themselves, and they're not. It's kind of diminishing returns.
Exactly. Yeah. And you're right. I think too, this is a perfect example. Marlowe, it's almost like, did you guys cheap out and just didn't want to film in LA? Was it a scheduling thing? Was it like, because none of this one looks authentically.
Oh, the Liam
like,
Neeson one. Yeah.
This one here, I mean, I just think even like I don't want to say I'm not a lay person either, but like I think the average moviegoer who is a fan of this genre would see that too. I think, and I feel like there was a few reviews to that extent too, because it was really just really obvious. It almost felt more like a Godfather
other one. Yeah, now they're always supposed to take place in LA. The only one that didn't take place in Hollywood was the remake of Big Sleep, the one with Robert Mitchum.
Robert Mitchum.
It's in England because they had no money. And I think that's a better version, actually. It got really bad reviews, but I think Robert Mitchum actually played Marlowe 2 times in a row. He played him in The Big Sleep and Farewell, My Lovely. And
those
I think
were my
he's the
favorites.
best Marlowe.
Yeah. I was gonna say he's my favorite Marlowe. Like because
Mitchum, definitely.
Mitchum was you know what I like too. I like what's his face, Elliot Gould in that one in Long Goodbye. I like Long Goodbye, but that wasn't because of Elliot Gould. I liked it because of the story and the setting and the gunfights and all that stuff. It's crazy. Like I almost feel like you could have replaced Elliot Gould with Robert Mitchum or even one of somebody else, and it would have been a great movie. Still, it is.
The Long Goodbye is so great.
I think it's a high point. It's kind of an exception for Elliot Gould. Like he's just not my favorite old star from back.
Oh, really?
Day,
I love Elliot Gould.
Yeah, you love him.
yeah, he's great.
Well,
yeah, that was a good one.
So Humphrey Bogart's Big Sleep, it was not filmed in L.A.
Oh, it wasn't?
It wasn't.
Or was it filmed in L.A.?
Oh, it was. It takes place.
I was going to say that felt very L.A. So that,
they filmed in the studio. Obviously, filmed in the studio. No, the one with Robert Mitchum was in England.
But it took place though in England. The story, the
story takes place in England. Yeah,
I think with this one with Marlowe, like if for whatever reason you had to film it in Europe, then make the story take place in Europe. I just think that's an easy fix there. Like anything can be forgiven if it's entertaining, if it makes sense, if it's valid to the character, especially a character like this where there's like a lot of built-in. Just everybody has their own thoughts. He's such a character that's been around for a long time. Hit certain marks, hitting certain notes, make it entertaining. And it doesn't have to take place in LA. If you think you can break the formula and make it better, go for it. I just think, there was no point in shooting it in Europe like this for this one. It didn't do it.
I think a lot of people think they're going to put their own spin on it, and everybody just ends up doing the same thing. Everybody's kind of copies. Except, and I will agree with you on the Robert Mitchum. I'm sorry, so the Big Sleep is the one where he's pretty, Robert Mitchum straight laced. The other one was where he was just a down and out drunk.
Farewell, My Lovelies, where it takes place in the 40s, and
honestly, that would have been a more natural progression of where Philip Marlowe would have been in his life.
Yeah, that's true.
He wasn't always going to be the cool customer out there.
Do you know? So I was the one movie I haven't seen, and I just started it this evening. Was Poodle Spring. Have you guys heard of Poodle Spring? So that's a made for HBO movie. Oh my god!
I never heard of it until we're doing this episode. I read up on it. Yeah,
so I'm trying my best. So it's James Caan. He's Philip Marlowe, but in the books, so he died during. Raymond Chandler died during the writing of Poodle Springs, but in the end, but in this book, he got married. So he's married in this book. So there was like a progression of his character in all the books. I think there's only like 8 novels though. Then right towards the end he got married. I don't know what happens to the marriage. Like I said, I'm not done with the movie yet. So
James Caan, that's inspired casting. That's inspired.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. I mean, which one is underrated though? If I can say,
I know what you're going to say. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
If you want a great Marlowe one that no one's seen, because Mitchum, I agree. Mitchum is better. I think he's the best actor in film noir ever, is Robert Mitchum. Yeah. So besides that, though, James Garner and Marlowe.
I did not even know that existed.
1969.
I didn't know that existed till you sent that.
I didn't know about that one either. Yeah.
It's odd, but it's contemporary, kind of like Long Goodbye. It takes place in 60s Los Angeles. Bruce Lee is in it. It's like the first time I've seen Bruce Lee's in something in America.
I know. What's
And
the trailer for it? I was like, this looks awesome.
oh, it's ridiculous. And it's kind of what got, I mean, I don't know if this is true or not, but I've read that that's kind of what got James Garner, Rockford Files and all the, and that kind
Oh,
of shit. So,
did it do
Well,
well? I don't. Did that one do?
no,
Did
it
it do
kind
very
of got
well?
bashed. I think it
Oh,
got
okay.
bashed critically when it came out, but I think it's awesome.
I mean, it was 69. Like I mean, there was a few other things going on that year. You know what I mean? Like, so it was kind
well,
of.
Yeah, and they
I'll be
certainly tried to do that. They try to make it like hippie-ish and like with
Oh, okay. That
he,
matters because if you're going to try to do Marlowe, it's like I think it's even risky to make it in color. That's my
yeah.
personal preference. I think even I think Long Goodbye with Elliot Gould, and I think they even, in other words, even into the dates where they could use color, I think they should stick with black and white for that particular story. I think I would have helped this one for sure. This new one, Marlowe, would like put it in black and white. We don't. Oh God, get
I
it out of here.
agree, except for Farewell My Lovely, because Farewell My Lovely kind of looks like a pulp novel cover
Yeah,
with like the
yeah.
super hard fluorescent lights. I always
Right,
like the way
right.
that one looks.
The thing with Marlowe, so that's the thing. You have Marlowe and you have Sam Spade. Those are the two, especially book wise, and they're kind of
Yeah.
similar books, and they're two detectives, kind of contemporaries. I mean, but cinema wise, Marlowe's always been. There's always just been more portrayals.
There's
of him.
more.
So
There's definitely more than, and Sam Spade, I feel like pops up in other larger stories sometimes, but not usually his own movies, it seems like.
Is
Yeah.
Bogey the only one to play both of them?
I would think, yeah. Ooh, that's a good trivia question.
Right, I think so. Watch us be wrong, but
Big Pal probably did it.
Big Pal probably did it too. He probably did Sam Spade, I'm sure. So yeah, let's talk about that though. So, but Sam Spade, we all know from the Maltese Falcon, right? Which I think some people say it is considered one of, or if not the first entry into
first big one.
Noir. Yeah,
that's probably my favorite right there. If you give me one,
is it?
I'll take that one over any of them. Yeah,
it's a good
over Double Indemnity.
I was just gonna say,
I don't count that as a detective movie. As a film noir, Double Indemnity. But as a detective movie, Maltese Falcon.
Yeah. What about the big now? Because for me, I remember when I first started reading up on these films and really diving into film noir, I would always get confused The Big Sleep with The Big Heat. And The Big Heat, I would say, is my fave. Entry into noir.
That is a really good one.
Oh, okay.
Even
it reminds me. I remember Joe, The Big Combo.
No, who's Big Combo?
That was one of the first film noir movies we watched back in Indiana, PA. Like from the original. God damn! If you saw like a clip from it, you'd remember. It's like a famous last shot where this couple walks off like in a silhouette.
The Big Combo.
I'm Big Combo.
By
the way, I just looked it up, and yes, Bogart's the only person. Bogart's the only person to do both.
Did you both? And, interesting.
Yeah. So anyway,
not too late for somebody though,
The Big Combo is another older movie that I it's like one of my favorite noirs from back then. They're actually they're all great, But
that's the thing. They were all good, and everybody tries to do them now. But Armando, you made a good point too. Part of what makes those movies is the black and white.
There's something about it, and there's nothing wrong with doing black and white today. If anything, it could be a money saver, I would think. But especially now, black and white today, like I think of like Roma, for example, or like just anything like remember in Nebraska, remember Alexander Payne, Nebraska with Bruce Stern, that was just came out
that was
like
on
10
film,
years ago.
Though. That was
it was film, black and white.
Film is cheaper, but digital is all the same. So companies don't even think about that when it comes to it's hard. It's hard enough to get black and white, but if it's equal cost, I don't think you stand much of a chance in that fight. Speaking of Irishmen who play detectives, and I'm thinking about Sugar.
Sugar.
You know what? Let's talk about this because guess what? I like Sugar. And
I really like it too. Yeah, I will say I only watched like the first 3 episodes before I was like talking shit about it earlier. And then I watched Marlowe like on Monday. I started watching Marlowe and I was like, this fucking sucks. And then I said to myself, let me check out Sugar.
I have a dissertation on why it's good. Okay, so and it's really what we've been talking about too, is everybody wants to copy the detective formula they want to do. And honestly, too, there's a reason why. That's what works. And here's the thing, and I don't have it fully fleshed out, so some of this is going to come out a little bit distorted. But the fact of the matter is, every PI, the good ones, you get your Bogarts, Mitchums, whatever, they always stand, I guess, apart from humanity. They're observing it. They're not necessarily the ones who are a part of it, too. They don't like to get mixed up in the emotional part of it. They end up doing, that's always the arc of all these movies.
Yeah.
So for them to kind of take that out of the equation as far as them becoming attached, to them becoming, getting married or getting a girlfriend or dying or whatever, they have to maintain. And he's like, you could tell they're going to play that show straight up like a detective show now. The whole superpower, because that was my thing too. When I saw you guys bitching, and then the very next episode I watched was when you kind of have the big reveal with him. And I'm like, and even Alex was like, where the fuck is this going? And I was like, well, let's stick with it. Let's see what they do with it. And the fact they really didn't do anything with it except for it being a plot device to kind of, and the fact too that the final beats of that show, it was him in every good detective show. There's just one thing that's bothering me, and I can't figure out what it is because it's bothering everybody watching it, and we don't know what it is that it's bothering us. I was like, that's what a detective show is supposed to do. Good ones do that. And so that is why I think Sugar is an excellent detective show.
The idea I like, but I didn't like it because, so I can't even say, like, I don't want to give away the twist at the end of like the reveal or whatever, but like that kind of bugged me because I get what you're saying, but like if the ultimate villain wasn't somebody that he was connected to or whatever, it just kind of killed it. I don't know. It felt like the case wasn't solved. It's like
you think it was a cop out?
Two. Well,
yeah, I don't know. It just
if you do notice though, one of the things I liked about it too is the fact that he learned everything from watching. It made a commentary on all these copycats of detectives. They all watch them and then they try to copy it, which is what he was doing just in his real life.
Yeah.
And so then you get to one of the things that they kept showing clips of, and I don't know if you guys noticed it too, they're showing clips of The Fugitive. All through the last 2 episodes, you're seeing clips of The Fugitive going, what the fuck is this? The ending is The Fugitive. That's the start of he's now looking for his one-armed man. And
I haven't seen the last 2 episodes. I haven't seen the last 2 episodes, but I feel like the big reveal being in episode 6, like that's kind of where I was able to. That's
really good. I do like what you said though, Joe. I do like
that makes sense.
That's good. Good.
That makes a lot of sense actually.
I haven't given away who did it and who's the big reveal of the bad guy or anything either too. You'll kind of, that stuff you'll discover, but it's kind of, again, sometimes who did it isn't really that big of a deal in a good detective show. Who it is just part of the story. It's not necessarily the whole thing. But it's like the Sixth Sense.
Usually, yes, I agree with that. But even with this, it was like a build-up thing. They were trying to get you on their twist. Like it was like an moment. I don't know. I hear what you're saying. I hear you. I just felt like
I think you're just.
I'm not looking forward to season 2.
Really?
I will tell you, that is not what I'm about it. I want to see what they do with it because they could very much drop the ball with this too. This is very honestly when they had their big reveal in episode 6, I was like, okay, but I was like at the same time, I was like, you know what? Okay, it's going to be weird. Let's see how weird it gets, and it really didn't get weird. It was just a plot device.
Second seasons are historically where good shows go bad. Honestly, sophomore slump, it's like, but yeah, second season, especially if the first season does really well, if it's a big, viral kind of a show, then it might do really well and then set too high of a bar. And then season 2 is like a big letdown. So I think that'll be interesting. Yeah. I think Joe, what you're describing is like pun intended, but it's like they're creating an alienation between him and the rest of the world around him. There's this unease. There's this there's something that he is, and he's very much observing everything. He's observing everything everybody does. And I think what got me into it, what actually got me to give it, a second chance, which ironically, with Sugar too, I had to stop and start. I had to pick it up and put it down. Very much like Marlowe. It was like, God damn, I can't sit. The stuff in Marlowe didn't gel, why is Jessica Lange here now, and why
Oh,
do I care? And
Jessica Lange and
it was very
Marlowe is
much like, why do we
ridiculous.
care? Yeah, in Marlowe is very much like, I don't know why I care, or I forgot why I'm supposed to care. And this is a movie. This is
And
just a
also
sit
too,
down
there's a
movie.
rule when you watch these movies. If you ever see a real famous actor show up in a small part, you already
Mhm.
know they're behind
You
it
already
somehow
know.
in the end.
Yep. Yeah.
Because they're not going to
Yeah.
take a small
'Cause
role like that for no reason.
the casting alone, exactly. The casting alone sets it up. And sometimes that can be cool. Sometimes I feel like that was in the 70s, maybe more, was when like the major person got to have some real fun doing stuff, but yeah, this Marlowe really fell flat, and it did make me want to go pick up Sugar. And I only got through the first like 3 episodes a couple of weeks ago when I started it. And then because I was watching Marlowe, I was like, I need a palate cleanser. So Sugar did the job, and I got through to episode 6. And what I was gonna say, what got me though into it, Vito was like the we haven't mentioned the Myra Breckenridge connection with Sugar, with the clips.
Oh, the
fucking
Dream On thing.
The Dream On. I don't
did
even
not
know what
notice
that's
that.
But
called.
again, this is done right. This is done right. This
This is
that's what I
done
like
right.
about Dream On. It is somebody who's influenced by TV. Where Brian Breckenridge was like, okay, we got 20 minutes or 30 minutes. We got to fill up with
We
shit.
got to fill another 30 minutes. Let's go to the vault and see what Fox will let us use. Like
I did love how Colin
Shirley
Farrell
Temple
was like loved old movies and
Yeah,
stuff. That
yeah.
was
Well,
cool, you know.
And the cutaways made sense. The cutaways actually helped the story. The cutaways were like, okay, this is I think also you had to have seen whatever movie that is cutting away to, but chances are if you're watching this one, you've probably seen like the big heat. Like that's what I remember, the big heat. It was in the first episode. He would cut away to that one a lot. And so far I like it. I like it again, Joe. I gotta agree with you.
Yeah. I think especially, I will tell you. So you know what I would also equate it to, and we'll get back to Marlowe. I know I just turned this into a Sugar podcast, but what it reminded me of, and I know Vito didn't watch it, but the Westworld, how Westworld's
I watched Westworld.
The first season was really the prequel to the show.
Yeah,
what the show.
The first season was like the movie. The first season was like the original Yul Brynner movie. First season, maybe part of the second season, but then after they kind of left the confines of we're in this theme park that's built for everybody, it was like all bets are off, and it had nothing to do with the original movie.
Right, and I think that's what Sugar's doing. They're like, we want to have a detective show, but we don't want to ever have it where he ends up getting married, or he ends up getting a girlfriend, or he ends up finding he has a kid, or he becomes a degenerate alcoholic. Which that's one of the things in Sugar. Alcohol doesn't affect him. So
that's true.
So there's a lot.
Maybe that's why I don't like it, because I do like this, the cigarette smoking drunk.
There is something to be said for that. Yeah, I will tell you, there is something to be said for that, where you can kind of watch somebody slowly kill themselves.
Right.
It's the best detectives.
Slowly light another cigarette after another cigarette after another bourbon.
Oh, man. Elliot Gould in The Long Goodbye is the hardest person to watch smoke, though, because he goes through like a fucking pack a minute in that movie. It's like constant cigarette in his mouth. Worse than Bogart.
Can you imagine being the script soup on that? Like, well, where was he at on this cigarette? I don't know.
So this is the other thing I wanted to ask too, and we might end up having to click the links. You might have a longer answer to it. Vito, I know you've been on movie sets. Armando, you've been on movie sets too?
A couple, yeah. Nothing major.
So I guess one of the things I want to know is, have you ever been on one where the stars show up and they're excited about the movie, but then you notice probably about 2-3 weeks in that they realize, oh shit, this is gonna suck. You know what I mean?
Like, way too often.
Because I was gonna say that's why I couldn't understand that he never, I never saw Liam Neeson take that turn where it looked like he was calling it in, because I was assuming that.
I know, that's why I was saying on the text thread, this movie feels like somebody owed somebody, blew somebody, and made somebody an offer that they could, in other words, like this felt like a lot of favors called in. You know what I mean? It felt like, no, let's let's just get through this. We lost the location. I know. We'll just do it in Ireland. I know. We'll just, it's fine.
You know what though? But we had Spade show doing well, and this is you get Neil Jordan, Liam Neeson, it's Marlowe. I remember when it came out, I was reading it, and it looked like they were trying to give it like this big festival premiere, and I think at least for like a minute they thought they had something good. And then I think when the reviews came out, they were like, "Oh shit, okay, no, this is garbage." But I do think for a second they were going to put it out there to see if it was like well received.
Yeah,
I thought it was going to be. I was like, "Oh, this is going to be great." And then, then as soon as you sent me that message, I'm like, "God damn it!"
Just the opening scene when Diane Kruger shows up and she's constantly going, "Tell me, Mr. Marlowe, Mr. Marlowe." I was like, "Oh,
Mr. Marlowe, tell me, Mr. Marlowe."
She does like 10 Mr. Marlowes in the opening, dialogue she has.
I have a few pieces of trivia, obviously directly from our friends at IMDb. This is my fave. You may have some other ones if you want. So, okay. Liam Neeson is at 70 years old, is the oldest actor to play Marlowe. Before that, Robert Mitchum was the oldest at 60 when he played the role the final time in 78.
I gotta tell you.
Character Philip Marlowe is aged between 35 and 40, according to the original author Chandler.
If you would have told me Mitchum was 85 years old, I would have probably said, yeah, he looked 85 years old.
You're like, yeah, that tracks.
That was an old 60.
Right? Bag beat up 60 for that age. Okay.
Have you guys ever seen Out of the Past with Mitchum?
Yeah, is that the one like the gas station?
Out of the Past?
Yeah, the gas station one. Yeah.
Is that the one
that was really good.
Which is the one where it's the POV is constantly from the main character.
Oh, that's the one Humphrey Bogart gets his face changed?
No, that's the other one with Lauren Bacall. That's Dark Passage where he gets his face changed. This one where it's like the whole movie is basically from his perspective, from his point of view, and every now and then when there's a mirror.
Yeah, no, this isn't that. No, actually,
that's
I
not
know
Out of the Past.
That is a Philip Marlowe movie, though. I literally just saw this in a documentary. He talked about. It may have been Lady in the Lake, or it might have been Lady in the Lake.
It is
okay. Where like the whole thing is his perspective, and I think he directed it too. I think Robert Mitchum directed it, right?
No, it wasn't Robert Mitchum. I think Robert Free, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and he directed it though too. I think whoever, in other words, like whoever played Marlowe or whoever played the detective.
Oh yeah, that was Robert Montgomery. I think Robert Montgomery and Lady in the Lake.
Yeah. I read Lady in the Lake, and I know why they had to do it. It's fine, but it's like it's just, I guess there's not much there. It's like a good little mystery, and you kind of forget about it. So I guarantee they probably thought, well, we need to give this a hook. It's too goddamn boring.
Well, that was really kind of groundbreaking for its time. Nobody, I don't think, had really done it like that.
No,
so that one always stuck out in my mind. So the other couple things it says, this says readers of Chandler's original stories and listeners of the original Philip Marlowe radio shows will be surprised to hear the character use racist slurs. This is a 21st century assumption about racism in the late 1930s. While blatant racism was common in the early 20th century, Chandler was actually quite progressive and would never have allowed even a minor character to use such racial slurs. This is not to say that Chandler was perfect. He held gender and sexuality stereotypes, just not racist ones. I thought that was an interesting bit.
That is an interesting tip. I would not have expected that.
But you know what? I actually kind of thought this when they were starting with, maybe I'm partial, but like they were starting towards the beginning with like the guy was talking about the wetbacks and the Mexicans and the this and the that. And like, then it seemed to be like a lot of people did it. And I was kind of like, like that's interesting. And it wasn't like it stuck out for me in this, but I didn't realize that part that like Chandler felt a certain kind of way, but I did feel like it was kind of reaching, or it was kind of like filling in for something, it's like when somebody curses too much. Yeah, like when somebody says fuck too much, or like they say they just curse too much, you're like, oh, you don't know what lift.
This new Marlowe movie, the new Marlowe movie tried to do a little bit of like racial tension and stuff, but but this wasn't even written by Raymond Chandler. This new Marlowe.
No, we talked about this a bit already. I just thought it was interesting though. It says in 2023. In an interview with Collider, director Neil Jordan spoke about creating a fictional version of 1930s LA in an unlikely locale. Quote, the main challenge of this was realizing some version of Los Angeles. Los Angeles 1938 doesn't exist. So I said to producers, look, why don't we look around the hills of Barcelona? Cue the laugh track. I'm sorry. Why don't we look? Why don't we look around the hills of Barcelona so we can get some feel for what it could have been or could possibly be? So we built an alternative version of Los Angeles, almost like an alternate reality of Los Angeles. We found an abandoned paper factory, which we turned into an entire studio. We found Marlowe's house. We found canyons that could be Benedict Canyon and Laurel Canyon. We recreated the entire city really in a different place, which is cool, lovely to do. End quote. No, dude, no. I don't know what PA or what underling told you that was a good idea.
That's what I'm saying. Like, they can't have the excuse of like an indie director that's just trying to make shit work, and so they go to a city to make it cheaper. They had the resources at their disposal if they wanted to do this right.
So it's odd, which is why I say it feels like a bunch of favors called it. You know what I mean? It feels like kind of slapdash. It feels,
but I think sometimes they use the budget as an excuse. I mean, look at the Big Sleep that Robert Mitchum did. I mean, that one is known as the one that had no money, so they had to shoot in England and cut all the corners. I still think it's a better movie than the Humphrey Bogart.
It still looks good. It does still look
well acted. Michael Winter's a good director. I mean, they gave it a shot, and they did a good job with it. And this one, I thought like that kind of energy or whatever would be in it, and it wasn't. Like you guys said, it was like they all thought they were putting in like a good performance, and this is already there. It's already laid out to be great, and it was just it's a hard watch. It's a hard watch for me to watch these period pieces that are very bubblegummy looking.
For sure. Well, and like I said, not a single LA intersection or landmark or something that like anyone who's ever spent time in LA where like either for work or just like, you not just like visiting, but like you're there for a short period, or you're like, you go to do something. I don't know. I just feel like if you've ever been to LA, there's certain things he could have really like woven in.
But even like he said, though, give the fantasy of LA, but like give the fantasy of LA at least. Like we did our episode about Tim Burton's Ed Wood. I've never been to LA before at that time, and I got more pumped up to come to LA watching that. And I was like, this is what LA is like. Not even close to what it's like, but it was at the time.
But it's
and they didn't do that in it.
As you just as you described it is how I feel the director is saying that he was hoping to acquire, which is like creating a magical, like almost third space. In other words, like, well, we know it really is, and we know what you, the audience member, thinks it is, but this is a place that's beyond that, and it's a combination of the two, and it's like a third space. That's what he was trying to do, was like Ed Wood, and he would have done better having some more cartoonish stuff, or like Dick Tracy, like remember like Dick Tracy, like that.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to describe it, but like Dick Tracy, where it's like, it's some city. I don't know, it just really honestly fell flat.
Yeah, LA, and you could say the same thing about San Francisco. I mean, you could say the same thing about New York and a lot of big cities. They are as much a part of a movie. If you're going to film a movie, if it's going to be about LA, it's got to show LA. Yeah, especially this era. It's crazy because you see them do it with New York. Toronto is New York all the time, and everybody knows it. And it looks
Vancouver's
stupid.
LA,
Vancouver's LA. It's like so if you're going to bother making a movie like this, well, then it's like every Hitchcock movie in San Francisco. San Francisco is just as much a part of those movies as the screenplay, and so when you fuck that part up, it really stands out.
Oh, that's awful.
It's so true, though. And I think it proves that it being in LA, while not like it's not impossible to do noir outside of LA. Obviously, there's tons of noir that doesn't take place in like LA
I always said I love Florida noir. I love movies like Body Heat. It's sunshine coming down, Palmetto.
There you go. Yeah, Palmetto, Wild Thing. I like Wild Things.
Wild Things.
I love Wild Things.
Florida. Florida is a location for film noir. You can reinvent. You can reinvent film noir like Florida did, stuff like that. I mean, it's definitely there. Like, as long as you have the elements of film noir, it's, and again, I think that's what people are missing. They just think if they have like that movies have a hard-boiled detective. If you don't have a really good femme fatale, if you don't have a
Yeah.
really good
Yeah.
layered mystery, it's not going to work.
If you would have told me Diane Kruger's playing the femme fatale, I'd been like, great casting. That sounds
Right.
great. That sounds like that's going to be great. And it just
Yeah.
wasn't at all.
Yeah.
Shit.
She's just so German. It just felt like I was at the Nuremberg trial or something. It just was really, like, oh, you're Jessica Lange's doc. Got it. Okay. And that's the thing too. Like with this movie, with Marlowe, I felt like there were I felt like every sort of scene, every sort of vignette or whatever you want to call it was like it was trying to reference some other already done well movie. Like I feel like Liam
It didn't need
Neeson
to be
goes
made.
into not only, what it was Gus Van Sant's Psycho. That's what I mean. It
Yeah.
was like that. It
Yeah.
was like, huh?
Yeah.
Like you do it shot for shot. So it was giving Chinatown at some moments, and then it was giving Lady in the Lake, and it was just like never its own thing it just didn't feel original too. This one, it felt very much like every scene was, okay, remember that scene in this, it's gonna be like that. Remember that, it's gonna be like that.
Yeah. It just
Too much.
I know.
Too close.
It just was so yeah, it was just like, I'm like, I don't need to, I've seen it done well before. You're just going to copy it for me.
Yeah.
I can watch my kids try to portray it and do the same thing.
like Bugsy Malone. Remember that movie with the kids?
Oh, that pedophile movie. Oh my God.
That pedophile movie. Exactly. Oh my God. Vito, you're not going to get this episode monetized. You got to get that word out. Don't let the AI transcribe that part. Watch out for that.
So I gave you guys my pitch on Sugar. Are you prepared to hear my pitch on Monsieur Spade?
Absolutely. I'm going to check it out because I have it. I found it.
Vito, are you as well?
Yeah, I'm willing.
I need to know you're on board.
I'm willing to hear your proposal.
Okay, so I'll start with the start because I already talked about Liam Neeson and the problem I have with Liam Neeson. So first off, the story itself is an extension of the Maltese Falcon, which I appreciated. They didn't just try to create, this is a new mystery for Sam Spade.
Yeah.
So the movie takes place in France. I will say this.
Time out. Is this a show or a movie?
It is a show. It is a show. It's a 6-episode show.
It's 6 episodes. Not long.
6 episodes, which was hour long. So the show itself, it takes place at Mary Astor's character. They had their fling. She goes to prison. Mm-hmm. She gets out of prison. She moves to Turkey. She's pregnant. She has a kid with this guy who is part of. I mean, it's kind of getting convoluted, like a good noir story. But anyway, so she contacts Sam Spade because she's dying in Turkey. Now you don't see any of this. You only learn this through the story. But this is the backstory of it. She has a daughter that she wants Sam Spade to deliver the daughter to the father. The mother of the father does not want the daughter because of they don't respect Mary Astor. So the show also takes place and it does flashbacks over 20 years itself. So that's kind of the premise of it.
In the south of France.
And it takes place in the south of France. And he decides to stay. He puts the girl in an orphanage. He has all kinds of money from Mary Astor. He meets a woman with a vineyard. And the woman in the vineyard has a whole story. I'm not going to go into the whole plot line with you. I'm just going to give you that as the framework of it. Yeah. So
I'm in.
The guy. So the one thing I was wondering, I'm like, okay, so I read the synopsis. I see it's taking place in France. The French know how to do this shit. It is a very, very French show. If you think somebody's going to have some redemption arc, sit the fuck back and wait. You're going to see what happens. So
gonna get all Polanski on you.
And they have such expressive faces. The guy who plays the police chief, I don't know who this guy is. He should be a global movie star. He's got this hangdog face. He chain smokes. He's like 300 pounds. And he's one of the best in the show. But you can barely hear what he's saying half the time, too. But anyway, so
he's the police chief, right?
Yeah, he's the police chief. So
awesome.
They have this whole setup that's taking place in this village in France. So he even has a little bit of that kind of British countryside murder, but stuff does happen. I'm not gonna say what it is. So the show kind of goes through these beats. I'm like, okay, well, this is conventional. Clive Owen, I can hear your Welsh, but I got to say though, the one thing they get right, and I feel like not enough of these shows or movies get this right, is it is so important. It is as important as the city itself is the cadence with which you speak. If you cannot maintain a proper cadence with the back and forth, like Double Indemnity. That was the king of that.
That's
No
what
one
was
ever
wrong
did
with
it better.
Marlowe. That's what was
Yeah,
wrong
they
with
didn't
fucking
do that.
Marlowe. You know, like you said, Vito. Tell me, Mr. Marlowe. Tell me, Mr. Marlowe. Tell
You
me,
will
Yeah.
Mr.
never.
Marlowe. Like,
So
oh my god.
everybody talks very natural in this show, except Sam Spade. He forces everybody to talk at his speed,
Yeah.
and you realize that like they almost made that a part of his character that he imposes on people. So it's kind of a cool.
Okay.
And Clive Owen, he has a menacing quality to him, and he's a smartass in it without being too cheesy. Like he threatens people's lives, but he does it in the way that you would imagine Humphrey Bogart doing it. That's the way it's supposed to be done. And he has emphysema. So,
that tracks.
So I will say that is the premise of the show. And I say this about it. It is a conventional noir in the sense that it's a very complex plot. And I am in the final episode. I don't know what the fuck is going on, but I've enjoyed every episode.
That's nice.
And I will tell you, at the end of the first episode, it let me know that this is going to be a dark as fuck show. This is not going to be
right?
And the subtitles for French, but yeah.
What channels? What channels it on?
It is. I didn't know it's an. See, I got Acorn TV, the app, and they play all the British mysteries on there, so that's why I got that one. But I guess AMC.
It's on AMC.
AMC did it.
It's on AMC.
Okay.
Do you have that one, Vio?
I don't know if I have AMC.
I'll give you my login for Acorn. I'll get you my login for Acorn. I don't know what it is right now, so you can watch it. But I will say, so the show itself is very chill. It's got it, but like I said, it is dark as hell. The last episode I started watching, I had to turn it off partway through so we could do this. But they had a double indemnity back and forth with him and two guys, and it was him wisecracking, but menacingly telling him he was going to murder them, but did it in a really wise ass way. And I'm like, this is how it was supposed to be done. But I will tell you the one thing though, too, that I still have a little trouble getting over is that I can hear his Welsh accent. He's trying to hide it.
Clive Owen.
Clive Owen. You can't. They're like, Mister, we do things different here than we do in San Francisco, and it's like, I'm like, no, I don't think anybody believes he's from San Francisco.
Yeah,
but that's my pitch on it. It's worth a watch. As far as what we're talking about, like detective shows and how they fuck it up, this one's doing it right.
I got Vito once to watch Project Greenlight. Right.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and I'm still not fully over it either.
was it that one about which one was it? Was it
the last one that just came out where their quote unquote diversity episode?
I didn't even know they were still doing that goddamn show. Last time I heard about it, they did that stupid comedy that bombed.
Well, and that's the thing is the behind the scenes show is always like way better than whatever the fuck they make. You know what I mean?
It was just a really shitty movie that was made. You can tell it was just like it was just garbage from the beginning. It's Damon and Affleck, picking white people for so long, they were just trying to make up for it. So they were just a shit show from the very beginning.
Did they do it? Did they do a detective movie? Did they do a detective?
No, but they did. They did like an intergalactic kind of like mother-daughter sort of. Wait,
I remember what I was going to say now because I was like we were talking about these other things too, but I was thinking about like, has there been a detective one thing that we haven't talked about that maybe was more in the spirit of a Philip Marlowe? And I don't know if I would say it's in the spirit of Philip Marlowe, but it was pretty close. I thought it was pretty well done. This might be a controversial thing to say. We'll see, but I do think Brick pulled it off.
Yeah, it was a good one.
And they should not have. They should not have, but he did.
Yeah.
I think he did.
I'll tell you what. First off, Brick, we'll say, I got to give it props. It's in San Clemente, right? So, shout out there. Yeah. And I'm like, that right there makes it pretty awesome.
You're partial.
So that's kind of cool. It is a good mystery with high school kids, like high school film noir or whatever you want to fucking call it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I watched it once.
That script was tight. That was a good script.
It was, but I noticed I can watch great film noir movies over and over again. And I noticed when that was done, I was like, that was really good, but I don't really have a desire to watch it again.
The vibe.
Okay.
It's going back to what we said. Detective shows, detective movies. You don't need to know what's going on. You don't even need to know who killed the person. You just need a
Big
good
Sleep with
vibe
Bogey,
going.
right?
Yeah, it just has to
Yeah.
be a good vibe.
Again, that's what the Maltese Falcon, you're right, was so great about. And that's what set the tone for film noir movies, where like, it's just so fucking cool to watch like that detective, a hardball detective on a quest, and he's going through all this stuff. And it is. If
And
it's
then
done
here comes the sexy,
it's
beautiful, we don't know if she's good. We don't know if she's bad, but she's here with money, and she's ready to turn the plot around. And it's funny. I love the Maltese Falcon. I always thought it was a little busy for me. In other words, like there's a lot of little smaller stuff going on within it, that I feel like Noir after that movie doesn't have as much going. In other words, like when I think of Maltese Falcon and I put it next to like Double Indemnity is pretty straightforward as far as like, insurance scheme. You hate your husband, let's kill him. And
but Billy Wilder is like an awesome writer too.
And there's a reason for
that. But compared to all the other ones, though, Maltese Falcon's pretty. I think it's pretty good. Well crafted. Though
it sets the tone, and
and part of what they're doing too is they have to hold back information from you, and they have to almost purposely confuse you because they don't want you to guess the result, and that is part of like film noir. Even those detective. If you ever read Dashiell Hammett in a Raymond Chandler book.
Yeah.
If you really want to confuse, go, what the fuck is going on? Those books do it, but you never are bored. You never feel like, I wasted my time reading that. You're like, they're always good, but they have to play a lot of sleight of hand type stuff, and they have to put stuff in there to say, am I supposed to concentrate on this and something like Double Indemnity? We're in on everything in Double Indemnity.
Yeah,
we know what's going on all the time.
There's
different
story. You're exactly right. That's what it is. It's that like with Double Indemnity, there's not ever anything that the audience doesn't know, which changes a little bit. And I think maybe it tightens the story a little bit, which to me it's an example of how like this is a genre that just got better and better and better. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure
and that's also though too point of view of the character. Like with Double Indemnity, you're following you're in part of the crime. You're not solving the crime. You are the crook.
You're part.
So you do know everything that's going on because it's his point of view. But when you're the detective, you're trying to figure it out. You're like
true.
In there. They are two different movies. Like you're right, following a detective and following just somebody like Double Indemnity. Or do you guys ever see Detour, where the guy is like,
Detour,
Detour, I love Detour, but like they're bad guys. You're following a bad guy. You're not following the detective.
She is such a bitch in that one.
She was
such a bitch. I loved her. I love how much I hate her.
Like Postman Rings Twice and all that. They meant like the guys that came back from World War II did not want a story with a happy ending. They wanted a guy that was, had an edge to them, maybe believed in something once and said, fuck it, and they're nihilists now. That was all. It's kind of how the biker movement came out of World War II, too. I mean, we always kind of hold up the Greatest Generation, but there were guys who came back with some serious PTSD.
Oh, yeah. And
they came back, and that's where a lot of film noir really took off because they loved it.
Jived with the production code. The production code was still the rule of the law of the land at that point. So it made sense that dad coming home from war or whoever, like it's like there needs to be a bad guy that pays a price at the end, and there's something cathartic about that, about film noir, which I think obviously the switch got flipped with Chinatown, was like the signaling of the new noir, right? Where it's like, oh shit, the bad guy gets away with it, or it isn't until they start to be in color. It almost seems like that
they seem to
evolution.
They got it. Yeah. Chinatown, Body Heat was like, you had the kind of that revival film noir. They kind of clicked with everything, and then it kind of went away again.
And maybe that's what people, when they do things like Marlowe, right, which is well-intentioned, I'm sure, like any movie, I think, it takes a lot of intention and a lot of like collaboration. In other words, it isn't just one person. We all know that it's just one person doing, but sometimes when a movie comes off like this, when it's so kind of like not even hit or miss, it's just all miss, every scene feels like a miss. It feels to me like, somebody needed a tax write-off. Somebody needed a favor. Somebody owed somebody, You know, it was in Jessica Lange's contract that she needed to do one more movie for that producer. You know, like it wouldn't surprise me if that, you know, and I feel like that's what comes through when it's not done well like that. You can kind of feel or see those threads that you shouldn't be seeing, you know?
Yeah, sometimes you have the right intentions going in, and you have all the right pieces, but once it starts getting mixed together, it just
justice for Myra Breckenridge. Now,
well, that's what I'm saying. I think you guys are exactly
they
right.
were giving this a shot. I thought they were trying to make this good.
Yeah,
for sure.
You know, they had too many good actors not to.
That's I thought
that's what
like
they said about Rust.
Too, everybody goes in with the best of intentions, and you think that's like, you know, and then it kind of falls apart.
Yeah,
I feel like they didn't notice that it was falling apart. Like it just seemed like they thought they were making a good movie. Like,
well, I think this movie, besides the set design, like we said, Hollywood looks, it's just not an attractive kind of movie. It's really it's like one of the worst scripts for a Marlowe detective movie. Like it was literally like an AI version of a script. Like it was very, cookie cutter Marlowe.
Perfect description.
Even the way he delivered like the fight scenes, you could tell like he wasn't really hitting somebody, and you're like, "Whoa, this is Liam from Taken." Like, what happened?
Yeah, and then when he's at that when he does he's beating up those farmer guys. I'm like, I'm trying to think of a scene from Chinatown in the Orange Grove. I'm like,
that's what I was saying. That's what I meant.
It's a bad script.
Is that every scene felt like it was trying to be a famous scene from a different movie that we all know and love. We all are going to see the Orange Grove scene, or we're going to see him looking through a water reservoir. You're like, geez, what's he going to do? And I wonder too if maybe in going through with making this, if like Neil Jordan or whoever else is behind it, because I think we can all admit, if we ever got the chance to do something like this, our intention would be to break the mold and try to have something that reinvents this wheel and gives you a body heat or a Chinatown, or a, even like, Maltese, just totally flipping the script on what's expected. I think going into it, that I hope is the intention of somebody making something like this, that they're shooting for the stars. Hopefully they're shooting they're swinging for the fences. And
I think you're right. I think that's what they think they're going to do. Like, we're going to do something different here. And they just end up falling into that pattern of like, here's your fedora.
yeah.
Do you want us to cut the left nostril or the right nostril? Which would you like to, or what other trope can we put in here? Do you want, and then it just gets all muddled, it gets all lost in the.
Well, I will say Sugar.
I'm giving that one. I'm trying to do that one.
I'm kind of curious. We'll see what happens in season 2. We'll see if they pull it off.
I gotta say thank you, Marlowe, for reigniting my interest in Sugar, because I needed a palate cleanser. Like, in other words, I was like, I need to see this done right. I just need to see it. I don't care he's a fucking alien. Oops, I don't care that, like, I already know that twist now that he's like, that actually drew me back in. I'm like, oh, he's a fucking alien. All right, well, beep boop bleep. Let's see what he does.
I'll try to give it another shot.
And here's come
on, don't you want to see it now?
I'll stress this to you guys too. It is strictly a plot device. It is just there to give a reason why he needs to get someplace at a certain time, and he has to make a choice. Like, you will not see.
Really cool.
He doesn't pull out a ray gun. He doesn't have.
I watched
no superpowers.
I watched it all, and I was like I said, I just felt like at the end, I don't know. I felt like
you watched it all already.
Everything had to be. I watched the whole thing straight through. I watched the whole entire series. So I watched all 8. I think it was 8 episodes. I watched the whole thing straight through.
Oh yeah, you're right. It was 8. Yeah.
Yeah. The big twist is in episode 6. But I just know it just felt like it was well made, but it felt like they were always trying to get you, like in a gotcha moment. Everything was like, got you, hit you. I don't know. It just felt like that to me.
It's okay. I see it. Well, I think a lot of them will get that way because that's like kind of what they do.
Yeah, I mean, it's
like So they want something to kind of grab you with it and make you say. But I do think that was the intention, because if they wanted to turn that into either a superhero movie or a superhero show or an alien show, they could easily have done it. And I will say, my spidey sense was tingling early on. So one of the things that I have to do now is, because obviously my hearing's going, I have to keep subtitles on regardless if they're speaking English or not. And
my hearing's perfectly fine, and I use subtitles. So sometimes I like if something distracts me or like I didn't really, and you can never fucking hear him the first time. I always leave him on, and my hearing's fine.
And when he said his sister's name was Jen, and I saw how they spelled it, I'm like, there's something up here. I go, as soon as I saw, I'm like, that's the clue. That's the hint right there that something's going on, that they want us to
they spoke a
stick around and listen.
He says something to the black lady, his that's like his handler, right? She's like his handler.
Oh yeah.
And so like there's a point, there's a real quick moment, they're on the phone with each other, like I want to say episode 3, after like, you know, he helps Amy Ryan and the girl and all that stuff. Like there's this real quick conversation, you know, and she's like, you know, the usual kind of chastising, be careful out there, sugar, blah, blah, blah. And then like he says something that sounds like Icelandic. It's the best it wasn't English though. And she says something quick back. But then by then, you know, about the like, oh, they're polyglots. Like, in other words, whatever it is can be explained. And I like that about it so far, as like, it is trying to throw you off where it's like, well, no, everything that you think is weird, there could be an explanation for it. It could be a logical explanation.
Yeah.
But it's choosing to go, somewhere else.
It was you could tell it was going somewhere. And when because I will say, like, I did start almost checking out around episode 2, even because the one, I have one hang up with movies that I don't think I'm ever going to get over. It's when I see somebody around 8 computer screens and they just start clacking away on a keyboard, and they're like, they were born in Export, Pennsylvania prematurely when they were, and I'm like, what the fuck? Okay.
Yeah. Where it's like Born Identity, or like, or like, what was that one with Will Smith? Remember the one where he was like Enemy of the State, you know, where it's like, oh, really? All of that in a carrier van, all of that you've got all in, you know, and it's 1998. Right.
Well, they were trying to remake the conversation and not doing a very good job.
Yeah, that's exactly what they were trying to do. Yeah,
that's so interesting.
That is it.
Yeah, so thumbs down for Marlowe.
The password to my Acorn account so that you can watch Monsieur Spade. But the other thing you should watch is And Then There Were None, the greatest selling mystery novel of all time.
Oh yeah, I know that.
You
mean the original movie?
Agatha Christie?
Oh, yeah, they remade it in a 3-parter.
Oh, really? Did they? Okay.
Yes, and it's so that I read. So that's a book that so you know the story though too. The book itself is fucking terrifying. I read that at night. It is a scary ass book. That house
wasn't it called 10 Little Indians?
Some people consider that the first.
But then they're like, you can't call this anymore.
Yeah, they're like,
some people consider it the first slasher flick.
Well, that's how it reads. That's how the book read. I haven't watched the show yet. That's how the book reads.
Is that the one with Fabian is in it?
I believe it's the one with Walter Houston, the original, but I'm not sure the new one. I've never.
There is one though called 10 Little Indians with
that's 10 Little Indians. That's a different movie.
Oh, this one's from 1989. 10 Little Indians with Brenda Vaccaro. I love Brenda Vaccaro.
They've remade it so many. I think the first one was 1946. The book came out in 34.
Yeah,
it is an original. I never thought
the one with Walter
way.
Houston. The one with Walter Houston, the 40s. That was the one that they always referred to as like the first slasher type movie, where there was like a killer killing like a body.
Would that one have been called And Then There Were None?
Yes,
I don't see it.
It was in the 40s.
Well,
I remember Walter Houston.
Barry Fitzgerald and Walter Houston, And Then There Were None. Oh, it's on Tubi, Roku, Prime, Plex, Freevee.
Oh, look at that.
Look at that.
Yeah, there is no private eye in that one, but that is
this is the first slasher. I mean, I know the story. I know the story about, you know, they're all on an island or they're all like on a getaway and everything, and we're trying to figure out who's the one killing everybody.
And talking about a slow burn, like the one thing I will say, I started watching the show, is they give away way too much in the show, in the movie. I'm like, the best thing about that book is she really doled out info in such little small increments.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing with Agatha Christie I can't do. Like, it's almost impossible to figure out what's going on if you read her books. You know, even it's I don't know. I tried to read Death from the Nile, but I was like,
I'll tell you, if you want to. So, And Then There Were None, I would say, is number 1. If you're going to read any of her shit, read that. And then number 2 is The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, probably the most groundbreaking mystery novel of all time. And it's probably got one of the I mean, I don't know today if we would say it's the biggest twist of all time. At the time that happened, it changed how anybody read a book after they read Murder of Roger Ackroyd.
Oh wow, okay. I'll
Yeah,
give this
so
a shot.
it's so that book and then No Word None were on like the top 100 books of all time list that PBS did a couple of weeks ago too. So a couple years ago.
Didn't she disappear for like a couple weeks?
Yeah,
and everybody
She
was looking
faked
for
her own death, didn't she?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Her husband
fuck?
was
Yeah.
screwing around.
Oh, Agatha.
Raymond Chandler, I will say he is easier to read than Dashiell Hammett has. Like, there's very little emotion in Dashiell Hammett's. If you just want to hear a guy go in, drinks a bottle of whiskey, goes out, solves a case, and doesn't seem to sleep the entire book, but has the best one-liners, Dashiell Hammett. Raymond Chandler, you could imagine being that guy because he's just booze, getting beat up.
Yeah.
But he still goes out and solves the case. His, I think, are a little bit more fun to read. But Dashiell Hammett is, if you just like one-liners, he's you can't miss.
Los Angeles, the city of angels. More like the city of dirty little secrets. People pay me to look into the activities of its finest citizens. I'm a private detective. The name is Philip Marlowe.
How private are your investigations, Mr. Marlowe?
What can I do for you?
I'd like you to find my lover. He disappeared without saying goodbye.
Did he have things to hide?
Haven't we all?
What does my daughter want?
My mother was in pictures. She must think there's something between us.
I hear that you are looking for someone.
We're all looking for someone.
But I'll pay you $1,000 if you find him for me.
The puzzle has many pieces. I don't know what you're gonna find.
I'm going down the rabbit hole. I'm not afraid to take you with me.
I do like this thing about not being afraid. Well, you should be.
They're all in on the conspiracy.
You'll keep looking because you can't stop.
The police won't touch you, but I will.
Of all the people in Los Angeles who you do not mess with, they're top of the list.
The key to Hollywood is knowing when your game is up.
You go in there, I'm coming out alive.
I have to ask myself, who wins, Mr. Marlowe?
I will do everything to put you in jail.
We all have our secrets, Mrs. Marlowe.
And your secrets?
You'll have to keep those too.